And let me tell you a little bit about what's on my mind today. I should say my little mind. You know, there is a soldier who is among the army that is sent by Bnei Israel to conquer Amalek. These, of course, are the people whose lives were driven by the Yaitzer Hara, the evil inclination, Amalek. Ugh, they were horrible. They would follow along behind Bnei Israel as they walked through the desert and attack and killed the sick and the elderly who innocently and defenselessly straggled behind the rest of the people. This soldier, I know I brushed my teeth this morning and now my eye teeth, I can't do anything with my eye teeth.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Let me just do this here. Okay. So, um, they defenselessly straggled behind the rest of the people and they would kill them. The children, the elderly, the sick, the ones that were defenseless. This soldier that I mentioned happened to fall in love with a woman of Amalek, and he wants to marry her. What should he do? Okay, the Torah reading today answers that question. And it's in Devarim, chapter 21, verse 13. And it says, the Torah says, listen to this. Bring her into your house. She must shave her head and remove her nails. She must change the clothes that she was wearing and remain at home mourning the separation from her father and her mother for an entire month. That's called shaloshim. All right? So she has to stay there and mourn her father and her mother. After that time, you may marry her, and she can become your wife. It's quite a story there you have to do. So, why is this? What's this all about? Why would the Torah say something as peculiar as that? Why? Why would the Torah give us such an easy way to welcome into marriage into our enemy? Why? This is an enemy. Hey, you want to marry your enemy? Sure. This is what you do. Anyway, and the enemy, of course, it's an intermarriage. So naturally, the sages answer this question, and the Talmud teaches us of a man who is overwhelmed by the Yaitzer Hara. This evil inclination is so strong that this person loses all control over what is right. So, what do the rabbis tell this misguided man to do? Listen to this. The rabbis tell him, the sages, these brilliant judges, if you will, of what the Torah is trying to teach us. They tell him to get dressed in black, then to journey to a strange town so as not to be recognized. And then, upon his arrival, he's free to do whatever he wants to do. Anything. He can do anything he wants, whatever he feels like doing. That is exactly what Gemara says. And no, I am not kidding. I am not spinning. I'm just telling you what it says. He puts on clothes. He puts on a black clothes. He goes to a town where nobody knows him, and he does whatever he wants. Anyway, before any of us goes home or goes to our rooms to change our clothes, putting on black, packing up our cars for our journey to a town where nobody knows us, you got to read a little further. You can't just stop there. Why? Because everything quickly changes. The sages explain that the Talmud does not mean that one should follow through with this. It's not what they mean. It just says that. So why not? Why say something and then tell you don't have to follow through? Because it's obvious to anyone following this course of action that they would be doing an avera, a sin. It's obvious. It should be obvious. If it's not obvious, there's something wrong with you. The sages further say that it would be an avera even if the man simply dressed in black clothing and went to a city where he was unknown, even with the intention to do this. Not doing it, but the intention to do it. The sages further teach that this example is offered to make it easier for us to fight the Yaitzer Hara, the evil inclination. After all, we all know how bizarre it would be for God to want us to dress in black and travel to a place where we are unknown to do whatever we want to do. So it makes sense for the sages to want us to understand that everyone sometimes goes past the stage where we can control our Yaitzer Hara. But if we do, and if we think about it for a little while, all of a sudden we realize how foolish it is and we don't do it. We regain self-control over what we're doing and we throw away the Yaitzer Hara. There's kind of a joke like that, an old joke where everybody on this call probably has heard it, but if you'll humor me for 1 second, this rabbi in the town in Europe, they're all telling him, Rabbi, you should eat some chazer. You should eat some pig because you don't know what you're telling us not to eat. It's delicious. You should eat it, and then you can tell us not to eat it. Come on, I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, one day the Yaitzer Hara gets him good, and he gets on a train, and he goes a few towns away. He gets off the train. He goes into the restaurant, and he says to the waiter, I want you should bring me a pig. I want to eat pig. So he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, the waiter comes by with this pig on a tray, puts it down in front of the rabbi, and the president of his shul happens to be walking by and looks in and sees the rabbi sitting there with this chazer in front of him. He walks in. He says, Rabbi, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the rabbi looks back at the president of the shul, a little bit surprised that he's there, and he says, what a way to serve a baked apple. So you see, you don't want to give in to the Yaitzer Hara. Now he has to worry about two avers. So anyway, I believe the sages were basing this notion on what we read today. Bring her into your house. She must shave her head and remove her nails. She must change the clothes she previously wore and remain at home, mourning the separation from her father and her mother for an entire month. After that time, you may marry her and she can become your wife. In other words, this is an excellent way to polarize the conversation, take it to its extreme. And we need to not follow the Yaitzer Hara. That's what this teaches. So if we go through these steps in our mind, we realize the folly of our ways, and we'll ignore the Yaitzer Hara, or we'll defeat it. So in our Torah reading, we see how the soldier's Yaitzer Hara enjoys a momentary victory until it is thwarted by, quote, first you must give her a month to mourn the loss of her former Gentile family. All right? In other words, the soldier is directed to be a humanitarian. He is going to ask this woman with whom he has become infatuated to leave her family, the family she loves, and the culture that she's very accustomed to and very comfortable with, and come to live with him in a new environment, in a totally different culture, totally different family, and it probably will not prove to be what she or he really expects. So the Torah is telling us the process of getting rid of the Yaitzer Hara, and regaining our spiritual footing, and is often accompanied by using our basic intelligence and humanitarian ideals as described in our Torah. We are encouraged to always look at the world by testing what we face against what we know is important. Our Torah wants us to know that it is wrong for us to follow our overactive imaginations and chase unrealistic possibilities. Most of all, we must remember that God expects us to understand that the Yaitzer Hara is a hoax. It's a smokescreen. It has no power, but it can often trick us to convince and trick us to behave unusually badly. We all know people who believe and act in insane ways. We see it all the time. Sometimes it's us. We know highly educated, well-trained people who are driven not by what is right, but by what the Yaitzer Hara teaches. Too often we hear of suicide murderers all over the world who worship their Yaitzer Hara. They kill innocent civilians as their Yaitzer Hara convinces them that the afterworld will welcome them as heroes for their despicable acts. The innocent who are killed leave behind more innocents, including fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers, husbands and wives, and sons and daughters to mourn their loving memories. We Jews have always based our observance of the Yortzeit of those memories, the anniversary of those loved ones, on the Hebrew calendar. That's what we base it on. While we Jews continue to practice that custom, I'm going to tell you something. There is one exception to this, because there's an exception to every rule. Every rule has an exception except for that one. If I were to ask what Yortzeit we observe on the 23rd of Elul, I don't know if any of us on this call today, on this service today, would know what I'm talking about. It's a very important Yortzeit. Even for those who do know this Yortzeit, the answer feels wrong. I don't know why I would observe the 23rd of Elul as a Yortzeit for my loved ones. Why? I'm talking about the Yortzeit of those innocent men, women, and children, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, whose lives were taken by a group of suicide murderers who worship their Yaitzer Hara. I'm talking about the hideous acts of the 23rd of Elul, 5671. That day corresponds to September 11th, 2001. If anyone thinks that our Torah is obsolete, irrelevant, or simply too ancient to take seriously, remember this. Never forget it. Every day, terrorists prove that without Torah, the Yaitzer Hara would be even more powerful because we would not know how to fight it. We as Jews would not know how to fight it. As for me, I'm not comfortable with observing the Yortzeit of 9/11 on the 23rd of Elul, which this year would be on Tuesday, September 16th. Can you imagine celebrating September 11th on September 16th? Because September 11th is this Thursday. That's why I'm talking about it now. May the memory of those whose lives were so viciously taken, horrendous, what a horrendous day. May it serve as a blessing to us, those people's memories, serve as a blessing to all of us. And may the world never be forced to witness anything like 9/11 ever again. And I'd like to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.